Hi, welcome to the Living Stones podcast. Today we're going to be talking about mental health, doom scrolling, and anxiety loops. My name is Allison. Today I'm joined by Anna. Anna, would you introduce yourself briefly?
Sure, I'm Anna. I'm a counselor and I graduated last summer with my master's in counseling, and I have a particular love for working with kids.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here. What is doom scrolling from a clinical perspective, and how does it differ from staying informed?
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of tough sometimes to separate them out, but I think staying informed is a very mindful practice.
Yeah.
So there's a beginning and an end to it. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read this news article or watch the news for a specified amount of time, and then I'm going to move on with my day. Whereas doom scrolling can kind of spiral out and become very attached to anxiety.
Yeah.
And I think there's also kind of a sense of urgency to it. Like, I need to know more and more and more and more to sort of satisfy our own internal anxiety.
Instead of just knowing the basic facts of what's going on, going down maybe some rabbit trails, conspiracy theories, would you say that's when it starts getting a little dangerous?
For sure, yeah. When you start hopping from, news site to news site, getting different opinions, then it can kind of become an echo chamber.
Yeah. Why does our brain crave this?
So, from what I understand, our brains are more geared to focus on negative events, negative experiences in our lives. And so that's why we're often drawn to news, especially when and it usually is, sad or scary news. Because it's more attention grabbing and it sticks with us for longer.
What are the warning signs that innocent news checking has turned into an addictive, harmful loop?
Well, I think one sign is just noticing how long you've spent on the news site. So giving yourself a little time check. I think another thing is trying to notice and stay in tune with what's going on internally. So what's happening in your body? Are you noticing yourself getting anxious or on edge or needing more versus just giving yourself that allotted amount of time?
Can you touch on a bit more about how it can be addictive to people?
Yeah, so since we have devices like our phones where we're constantly able to have information, sometimes we can get addicted and not really be able to even take a break, be away from our phone. We feel like we have to have it on us at all times. That can create even more anxiety for us.
Yeah, maybe checking, would I feel anxious if I didn't immediately know what was going on right now in the world?
Yeah.
Would I be okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if not, you're probably addicted.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So we already mentioned why our brain craves this. It's actually has a title. It's called the negativity bias. Could you speak a bit more on that? So why we're drawn to distressing news even when it causes us anxiety?
Yeah, so this is something that our brains actually are wired to do. And it, from what research shows, it is kind of an adaptive function of our brains to look for and assess for threats or danger. And so that's kind of why we get drawn to negative things, or why we remember negative things throughout our day or our lives. We remember them more vividly than positive experiences because our brains are constantly searching for safety. And so anytime there's threat or danger, our brains are going to hang on to that, file that away so that we're more prepared for the future.
Yeah, so self-preservation.
Yes.
Wow. How does this habit impact sleep, focus, and physical health?
I think a lot of us have heard before that being on screens late at night can disrupt our sleep, disrupt our circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
So that can definitely affect our sleep, which affects our physical and mental health. Also, just the constant feeding ourselves with negativity, with these really heavy news stories, that can create a lot of anxiety. It can create low mood about the way we perceive ourselves, the way we perceive the world.
Yeah, it's kind of like a vicious cycle. So you're up on your phone, you lose sleep, you lose focus, and overall your physical health is sacrificed because you're not sleeping. What is a digital detox or a news diet, and how can someone realistically start one?
Yeah, so the concept is the same as any other kind of detox, like trying to stay away from sugar or cut out other things in your diet, right? But this has to do with how much media you're consuming. So, and there's different ways to do it. Some people might do a total fast where they stay completely away from reading the news or scrolling for a specified amount of time. Other people might put time limits around it. One really simple way to start would just be to put time limit constraints on your phone. You can do that in your settings so that your phone will give you cues for when it's time to put it away, or it'll even let you know how much time you spent on certain applications each day.
You just reminded me, at one point in life, I used to plug in my phone on the other side of the room before I went to bed. So I was not laying in bed scrolling on my phone, and it changed so much of my physical health and my sleep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just something as simple as not plugging your phone in directly next to your head every night, where you can easily pick it up and start scrolling. What about how the news is always on, it seems, whenever you go to a nail salon or a hair salon or you're walking around the store? How could you avoid that when it's so present?
Yeah, that's really hard. It does seem to be in our face all the time.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It is a good question. As I'm asking it, like...
Yeah, I think that's where it becomes more of a mental or emotional boundary of deciding whether or not you want to engage in that moment. Turn your attention away to something else. I know a big place that news is on a lot is like the gym. They'll have every news channel on. And so, having an alternative that you can, music to listen to or something to watch on your phone, so you're able to not get pulled into that if you are not wanting to engage with it.
Right. So coming prepared, assuming that you probably will see the news, especially if you're going somewhere like the gym. How can people replace doom scrolling with more positive or proactive activities?
Yeah, I think, again, it's starting simple, starting small. So a couple of things that are helpful if you want to replace it with something more proactive are focusing on more tangible things that you can do. So things you can do with your hands, maybe, cooking or baking, going outside, even going for a quick walk, 5 to 10 minute walk can kind of help reset your brain and regulate your body. Talking to another human would be a really great one, especially when you're starting to get stuck in that spiral. Just reaching out for that more personal connection.
Yeah, having things that excite you, that you're looking forward to, maybe a new hobby or craft or something. Yeah. How can we retrain our brains to not feel guilty when we aren't up to date with the latest crisis?
Yeah, I think because we can stay informed, we feel like we have to stay informed.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest part of retraining our brains is just by creating some new habits, creating some boundaries around it. And when we have that space and that distance from it, we'll start to teach our brains, like, I don't have to know all of this now.
I like to think that if it's that important, eventually you will hear about it. If it's that important, someone in your life will tell you without you even doing the research on it. It'll be brought to your attention.
That's very true. Yeah. If it's urgent enough, you'll know.
You'll know. What is one small question listeners can ask themselves while they are scrolling to check if they're falling into a trap?
I have two ideas. One is, do I need to know this right now?
Yeah.
And the other one is pausing and asking, like, what's going on in my body right now? Because sometimes we can get really separate between, what we're feeding our brains and what's going on in our body. And I think if we can step away and ask ourselves that, it'll give us some really good insight into whether or not we need to stop and pause.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Anna, for joining us today and talking about this subject.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for joining us. And maybe if you find yourself doom scrolling, this podcast might be a good way to distract yourselves from the chaos of our world and find something a little more grounding. So we hope that this provided that for you, and will continue to. And we hope to see you next time.